Lawyers of Reddit, what was your hold it moment where you knew you would win? When I compared the scanned copy of the deed provided by the other side's lawyers to the original my client eventually got around to providing. The scanned copy provided by the other side had a witness signature. The original did not. I've caught this before. I wrote up a settlement recommendation because we had a sloppy record. Client came back with a much better record in response. No explanation of why they didn't provide it in the first place. So we called them. Turned out they used our settlement recommendation as a guide to improve their work. After the lawsuit was actually filed, it definitely wasn't an intentional attempt to commit fraud or perjury, but for my sake and this, I'm glad I caught that. I worked on a case involving defective processors. In discovery we got emails from the defendant's engineers that had worked on the processors. They were in a nation country, but the emails were in English because they were going to US executives. One of the more senior engineers basically laid out the exact defect we were suing over, explaining what the problem was and why it was their fault, and finishing with "this is big problem. We ship crap to customer." Needless to say we hit them over the head with that in mediation, and they settled shortly after. It was my third month of practice. I was in family law at the time, representing mom in a petition for a restraining order against boyfriend/dad. At issue in the broader case was child visitation, custody, support etc., but today's hearing was just on the row. We had pretty good facts, but it was mostly based on testimony of the parties. My client was way more reputable as a witness, so I was feeling confident. 10 minutes before the hearing, my client shows up. I give her a last minute prep on what to expect, and then she says, "I'm glad I'm going through with this. I can't deal with it anymore, and he's just getting worse." To top it off, he left me a drunken, ranting voicemail on Saturday. "You have your phone with you?" "Yes." We play the voicemail, and it's a full 2 minutes of ex-boyfriend screaming shit, like I should have fucking killed you when we were together. "You were always such a bitch. I hope you burn to death in a fire." I didn't have time to ask her why the fuck she hadn't said anything to me about the voicemail before the bailiff called our case. We sit. The judge asks if either side has additional evidence, and I ask for permission to play the voicemail. Ex-boyfriend, who didn't have an attorney, didn't object, so I played the whole nasty 2-minute rant in open court. Judge goes, "We're going to take a brief recess before I issue my ruling. If the parties want to meet and confer in the hall, they are welcome to." Boyfriend knew he was fucked. We settled the whole damn case then and there. My client got a wish list in terms of custody, supervised visitation, child support, plus the restraining order, to boot. In court for a restraining order, my ex was adamant he had not nearly killed our daughter, and that he did not in fact break into my house and point a gun at me the week prior. I was just a liar who wanted to keep his child away. When told I was asking for a full indefinite order, which is zero contact ever, he said to his lawyer, "If this bitch gets that order, I'm going back to her house and I won't fail this time." Sadly for him, his microphone was still on. Not exactly a knew you would win moment, but I got a hidden shout out from a federal judge in a ruling that I consider to be one of the high points of my career. Here's what happened. Before a hearing for an emergency injunction against Duster, I was watching the hearing before mine, a trademark infringement case. At the end of that hearing, the judge accidentally used a pun and could not stop laughing. She was literally crying. I decided at that moment I was going to intentionally use a pun in my hearing. I did accuse Duster of engaging in a shell game by illegally diverting some federal funds to an egg industry trade group. The judge called me on it, but laughed heartily. My client won. The judge threatened to put the Secretary of Agriculture in jail. A major newspaper reporting on the case said the judge winced at my puns, but agreed with my arguments. False. When the written ruling was issued, the last sentence said that an injunction was issued against Duster's use of the funds for any plans they may be hatching. Undeniable shout out. Not a lawyer, but I'm currently in a custody battle. Mother is saying I can't be trusted because I've been refusing to take our child to the therapist. The therapist testified I couldn't bring our child in because therapy must have both parents' consent, and mother has retracted consent. spinal, but a friend of mine was a DWI attorney in New York for a while. He was defending a guy who was asleep in the backseat of his car while intoxicated, and an ICE trooper arrested him. On the stand, the trooper testified that he visually saw the key in the ignition. My friend gave him like 3 chances to walk it back. Are you sure, trooper, that you actually saw the key in the ignition? Yes, counselor. When a cop calls a lawyer counselor, he really means asshole. And then my buddy dropped the hammer. You are aware that my client drives a Toyota Prius? Bam. No key. No ignition. Right? My car is the same. Yes, exactly. I knew someone asleep completely reclined in his passenger seat at a provincial park once, and HS had to do a breathalyzer or else he was going to get an automatic DUI despite not being found in the driver's seat. Why? Because he admitted to having his keys in his pocket. He blew just under the legal limit. The park patrol threw his keys into his backseat and told him he got lucky and to sleep it off, pal. Like he was doing at 6 AM on a Sunday morning at his friend's campsite. I would understand if he was in the driver's seat, but come on. Hey, he cold been dreaming about driving drunk. What's the cop supposed to do? Just let those dream pedestrians be at risk. My client was accused of brutally murdering a dog. Cop testified that there was no testing of the blood, no body ever found, and admitted it could have, in fact, run away. The eyewitness said she could see the killing down the hallway from the dining room. Cop testified there was no hallway and the dining room was on a different level of the house than the killing supposedly took place. Then the person who was leading the lynch mob against my client around town for the last year testified that she had been in the apartment between the 2 visits by the cop to evaluate the scene. No body, a compromised crime scene, witness who couldn't see anything, and admission that there was no proof the dog was dead. Closing argument lasted 3 seconds. Your Honor, I'm asking for an acquittal. Edit. My first award. Thanks. For those who asked, this was in Canada and received a fair bit of media attention prior to trial. Who fabricates bullshit like this? What do people gain from it? People get it in their head that someone has done something, and if they could only get someone else to see what they see, what is so obvious, then not only would the perp get what is coming to them, but then they would be lauded as heroes for being the only one smart enough to see the crime. Bonus points if it involves cruelty to animals or children. Easy to get others on your side then. Not a lawyer. Years ago I had to do something at a strip mall in a bad part of town. Took me about 20 minutes, and then I found that my car had been towed. Ubered to the tow yard. Giant sign says cash only. Had to call another Uber, drive to the ATM and back, and pay them $300 some bucks. Got a shitty handwritten receipt that, believe it or not, was itemized. Went home, googled, found that they violated the law in 3 separate ways. Towed illegally refused to accept credit cards, and had multiple charges that the law called unreasonable, like dolly fees and load/unload fees. Took them to small claims court. The judge began by asking the tow yard owner about his relationship with the property owner and how the decision was made to tow my car. Oh, the slimy tow truck dude answered, my cousin works there. If he says tow, I tow. It's 100% legal. The judge's eyebrows begin to rise. But, the dude continued, but what I detest the most, Your Honor, is this asshole claiming I don't take credit cards. I'm a businessman. I take credit cards all the time. He's a lowlife that does not have any credit cards. That's why he wanted to pay cash. I was having a hold it overload, and the judge saw me smiling and hopping in my seat and patting my manila folder of receipts. Do you actually not have any credit or debit cards? The judge asked me. I pulled out my wallet and showed him, and then I pulled out a time-stamped photo of the cash only sign I took the day of, and another one I took the morning of the hearing. The guy mumbled something like, okay, you got me there, and then had nothing but I didn't know that when the judge asked him about the legality of each unreasonable itemized charge. Anyway, each violation pays double the total tow charge, and since there were 3, that's how I made $1,800 on a $300 investment. Client parked his EV outside of his boyfriend's condo overnight. He plugged into an outlet at the condo with the special extension cord for his car. Car got towed by, you guessed it, sleazy fucking tow company. They didn't even bother to even unplug the charger from the car before starting to tow it away. The charging cord got lost somewhere on the road and the car's charging port got destroyed in the process. I advised client to take it to small claims court on his own and he won handily. Tow companies on call for hose and condo associations are almost as sleazy as the collections lawyers hoes have on retainer. I can't believe I'm about to use the not a lawyer, but here goes, lol. Tried to sell my home myself, and the buyers wanted a term period for land contract before getting their own mortgage. I agreed to 1 year, had a simple contract drawn up, and after we both signed it everything seemed fine. Within 30 days they present me with their own legally drawn up land contract that was pages long to protect their investment. About page 3 it very clearly stated that if for any reason the home burns down, purchaser will receive all insurance proceeds. First, I still had a mortgage and the proceeds would legally go to pay that off. Second, that's a pretty targeted thing to say. Not lawyers' terms of the house being destroyed and it's surrounded by woods and waterways, just if it burned down. Page 4 stated that this would remain a land contract until my mortgage was paid in full, so they'd never buy outright. I returned it to them with a letter stating those two things were never happening and I wasn't signing. They stopped paying, so I began eviction. 6 months later the lawyer I hired was an idiot, and I'm sitting down with their lawyer myself. He brings out the contract they tried giving me and began talking about their ironclad case due to the agreement. I asked him to show me my signature. The look on his face when he realized it wasn't there. After we talked it turned out he knew them and wrote the contract without the burn the house down stipulation. Seems they added it and under the belief it was a long-term land contract. Not only did I win, I'm pretty sure they lost a lawyer friend. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more videos. Also like the video if you enjoyed.